Okay, so for those of you who don't know me, I'm Tracy Repchuk. I'm the CEO, author, speaker, plus I am additionally the Executive Vice President of Marketing for Be Connected. And I'm really going to be taking you over the next show series through my journey from, starting off from nothing. I didn't have a magic wand in the beginning, to where I am today, speaking in over 39 countries. I've been on most television networks, Forbes 23 times. I'm an Amazon influencer and a LinkedIn advisor. And got a few books out there as well as some awards. And I say this not to impress you, but to let you know that where you are now, you can kind of go and move and achieve the goals that you're moving towards, because that's simply what I did. I started out at ground zero, just like everybody else. Now, one of the major things that I've noticed is with the advent of social media came so much confusion. Where do you go? Where do you hang out? The beautiful part now is we have made this super simple, because where should you be hanging out? Quite frankly, is of course the Be Connected platform. The other part about this, though, is how do you move people to that? That's where you can be leveraging Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube and Twitter to drive traffic to your Be Connected groups. And I'm going to take you through the journey that I did and that I walked to reach millions with my message. And of course, it's a 4-pillar approach that we're going to be taking. The first one is kind of internet and social media. What do you do there? If you want to leverage a book, let me know how many authors are out there. It's a really great piece, but it's not the piece you should start with. And so I'm going to be highlighting that concept as well. Of course, speaking, let me know the speakers out there. This is one of the fun elements, right, of making an impact and of reaching millions with your message. It's one of my favorite things to do. And it was really the catalyst to a lot of the change that occurred for me. And of course, the more I spoke, the more confident I became, and the more I realized that getting some television appearances was my next best step, because it really went from, making impacts to reaching thousands of people, to reaching, tens of thousands of people, to ultimately, when I was on television, the exposure was in the millions. And so that's the route that I'm going to be walking you through as we move through this weekly journey. Now, the first thing you want to do, though, is you got to get clarity on your message, your branding, and how you're going to channel the new traffic that you're going to be achieving once you really start to gain momentum and once you start to reach out bigger and bigger and bigger. And so we're going to be stepping through that. The first thing I'll talk about briefly today is really about a clear and consistent message, something that is easily understood. So that your audience doesn't end up in any sort of state of confusion, because a confused buyer never buys. The thing with having so many different social media platforms is it really leads to a schizophrenic activity out there. You're one identity on LinkedIn, you're one identity on Facebook, you're another identity on Instagram and Twitter. And so as people start to find you from each of those locations, if they don't match, if your brand does not align across all of those and then ultimately lead to a central location, this is where you continuously confuse your buyer, and then ultimately they may leave altogether. So before you can, of course, go running out and deciding where do you spend your time and your resources, the first thing you want to understand is who's your target market. And again, that's the beautiful part about the Be Connected platform, is it really makes you think about that. When you're setting up your connection generator profile, you have to be thinking, what are my demographics? What is the age categories that I'm interested in reaching? Are there certain areas I'm interested in reaching as well? That will help you to hone in on what it is that you're going to say as a brand, what your messaging is going to be, because you can't use, millennial talk if you're speaking to, a baby boomer or a sandwich generation type of thing. And vice versa, right? If you're really trying to target a Gen Zer, then you had better use the languaging, the platforms, and the color schemes that they're all used to. Now, when it comes to being on the internet, one of the major elements that you must pay attention to is keywords and your search engine optimized words that connect to you. And the whole reason for this is because you need to make Google your very best friend, right? So you'll even notice if you go out and search even just your name on Google, you're going to start to see what brings up. And of course, one of the things you'll start to see is the different social media platforms that come up, the different websites that you occur and or appear on. And you want to get that consistency in what you're saying and the keywords that you're using so that they align across all of the various platforms. So your brand is really making it clear what you want to be known for. I remember this and learning this lesson very vividly when I was a speaker for the World Internet Summit. I remember, I would go out and do my talk, and then all of a sudden I started to get all these referrals for, quite frankly, search engine optimization, right? And I was like, well, that's not really my specialty. I talk about it because it's such a key element, but what I specialize in, and at the time I specialized in membership sites. And so I realized at that time, I was not clear on what my brand was. They started to call me Recurring Riches Repchuk because I was teaching people how to set up membership sites where you would get money month after month after month. That's what I started to become known for. And it came through the error of my not properly identifying my own branding. Now, when you do that and you don't properly brand yourself, you end up swimming in the sea of sameness. And so what happens here is prospects don't get what makes you special. So the thing you want to start to add to that is a unique selling proposition. So if we take a look at a couple of key areas in understanding when it comes to brand versus marketing. So branding is your ability to identify what it is that makes you unique. Colors are part of a brand. Of course, it doesn't end there. There's actually 9 various areas connected to what your brand is. And then marketing is getting out there your message. So if we take a look at FedEx, their brand tagline is when it absolutely positively has to be there overnight. That's a unique selling proposition. If we take a look at the M&M guys, who knows what the M&M kind of unique selling proposition is? See if you can type that in the chat. And I'll start to test. I could use hundreds of these different taglines, right? American Express, Nike, we all know. Super simple, right? Just do it. That's right. Good job. Melts in your mouth, not in your hands. And so let's take a look at this. So it's the milk chocolate that melts in your mouth, not in your hands. Now that was a key element because they were targeting a very specific candy that melted in your hand like crazy, and that was Smarties, right? So this is the promise. This is kind of part and parcel of the brand. The marketing of that is getting it out to various distribution channels, right? Once you have clarity in your brand and in your messaging, this makes it so much easier for you to disperse and go all over the various networking channels because you're going to have clarity across all of them. So no matter where somebody finds you, you have your identity established. And now they're all coming back to a central depot, whether that's your master website, that will now bring it all together, because all of these are meant to be as various tentacles to bring in traffic. but they can't bring in the traffic if you've confused the marketplace. So again, this is branding is part of your brand. This is what this is all about, and what you do to get your message or promise to customers is what marketing is all about. So your key desire is, of course, to be able to stand out from the crowd. And the more you brand well, the less you need to sell. Then you want to really start to incorporate your websites into this overall branding concept, because those are the things that give that first impression. And if your websites aren't working for you, they're working against you. You know you have a weak website if you are afraid to give out your URL. If you have that sentence that says something like, I'm just in the middle of updating it, but here's what it looks like now, okay? Those are types of things. So if we take a look at kind of your window to the world, that's what your website is. If you're in a retail store and they walk by your windows and your windows are not interesting, they will walk right by your store. And as somebody who is now sitting in the front of a retail outlet, I know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm sitting here right on Main Street and I see people passing all the time, right? So I have to make sure my windows are pulling them in. That's your website. Only instead of me reaching 1,000 people that might walk across in a 5-day period, in this situation, you could be missing out on millions. So you can't have a website that is weak in either messaging or impact like these particular sites were. You have around 3 seconds to make that first impression. If you do not make it, this is where it's going to start to fail you, right? And that's, of course, where if your websites aren't working for you, they're working against you. Now, what's this going to result in? A loss in bookings, clients, and referrals. You will instantly repel your audience, especially if you are a target market to women. We're extremely sensitive to colors. And if you go in and it is dark and there is just something totally wrong or disconnected with what you're trying to convey, then they're gone. And they don't even know why. They have no idea. They were like in and gone. And again, statistics to your websites are going to tell you what's happening in this arena. So examples of before, the one thing you need to really take a look at is, are you making that impression that represents you and your brand personality? And are you moving yourself away from the norm in a way? So if we take a look at Andrea Beach here, she was one of my clients. And so she had the typical cookie cutter. Every mortgage company on the planet had a site that looked like this, right? So when somebody comes, there's no differentiating factor. What is that I've said on my business card and for decades now? And that is, what people are buying online is you. And that's what we did. We switched it to be all about Andrea. And why? She's been in the industry for how many years? I think it was like 27 years at this point. She's created relationships. She's made a name for herself in Las Vegas. She really has, done that awareness of the quality of her service with her. You would never know that, though, from reaching her former mortgage broker site, because she was just another mortgage broker. And again, this is also an industry. I have so many people say, I can't do anything to my site because I'm monitored by financing, or I'm monitored by this and that and the other thing. She is heavily monitored by, of course, 2 major industries, real estate and the mortgage. And you can do a lot with what you're given, because it's all about layout, structure, and impact. And this is, of course, what we ended up with. Now, the one thing you want to do too here, notice that we pulled out target markets. That's part and parcel of how are you going to reach millions. It's that clear identity on who do you want to deal with. In her situation, she has 3 very specific markets: first-time buyers, home buyers that are up leveling, and real estate agents that are referring her because she is the mortgage agency. So you want to make it very simple for your target markets to come in and go, oh, there's where I go, right? There's the channel that I go into. It's like a department store. When somebody comes in, you want them to be able to look at a directory and go, oh, I'm looking for menswear. That's the second floor, and up they go. You don't want them wandering all over, hoping that eventually they pluck out what they're looking for. Yes, I can see your chat message. Again, here is somebody who was a videographer, right? Award-winning, in fact, videographer. She was a former actress, so she'd been in front of and behind the cameras. Tons of accolades to her name and awards. And you simply wouldn't know that. It's a little bit like a hodgepodge of what she's put together. The other error that a lot of companies make when it comes to being able to impact a certain arena, right, is you need to pick a lane. Notice she has corporate speakers, and I can do weddings, and I can do music, and I can do sports recruiting. She had about 50 categories that she was willing to run around town with to do a video production for. And so I said to her, what are your two biggest, JR talks about this all the time, what are your two biggest income streams, right? The 80-20 rule. Hers were weddings and corporates, kind of speakers and business people. So I said, great, why don't we take a look then at highlighting those two major ones that you have, because you don't want to cut off a money artery. Her money artery was actually weddings. She didn't want to do weddings anymore. So I said, great, let's start to position you as somebody able to do corporate speakers and businesses while your weddings are still sitting there as your bread and butter until we get a switch over. And that's exactly what we did. We just, again, we created packages so that people understood. Notice that we highlighted the fact that she does businesses and weddings, okay? She actually also did TV show productions for people as well. And so that was very helpful. And then what we did here is, of course, position it that if you want to boost an elite or an accelerator, and we started to focus those on businesses. So do you need your stats to go up? Then maybe you need YouTube videos. Do you need a brand or re-imaging? Then you need videos that are positioning you and your company and things of that nature. So it really comes down to understanding the market. And I'm talking about all of this because if you don't build your house on a solid foundation, the more traffic you push to it, it's just going to do one of two things. It's going to cause a great boom in your business, or it's going to crush and collapse it because your foundation is not big or good enough to be able to support the new traffic streams. And that's why it's very important. And again, just another example, of your dating experience. I looked at this site and man, thankfully I've been married now for 29 years. But man, dating did not look fun when I came to this site. I was like, whoo, glad I'm out of that marketplace. And so this is the other thing too. If someone's coming to your site and they want to hire you as a coach, which is what she was, a coach for that field, if your site does not indicate that, then that's it. It doesn't matter. You've blown any chance of them hiring you as a coach, no matter what your cost is. So again, just repositioning her site, really talking about her and her as a coach and her as a speaker and her as an author, quite frankly, right? We positioned her as the authority and a credibility in her field, as well as the fact that we've talked and we've profiled her coaching services on how do you really, connect with that person that you're looking for. And again, just another site, this one was of a speaker, right? In this situation, you didn't even know who the speaker was. Well, it was actually this guy. And so again, repositioned it all. And I think the biggest thing that we did was I talked about a unique selling proposition. That means grabbing what's unique. Well, this guy was blind and 90% deaf, right? I think that's pretty darn unique considering he is an international speaker. He is a triathlete, right? I mean, the guy's absolutely off the hook, incredible. And nobody knew about him because he was not positioned properly. The second thing, and again, I'm saying all of this so you start thinking about you, was his brand positioning and target market. So, you know, yes, could he speak anywhere? Absolutely. But where was his best bets? The two places, and that was churches and colleges. So we plucked those two markets. And why does this help as well? It helps to be able to find the target market that you're looking for. In our situation, we then went out and typed in, you know, churches in Los Angeles, and thousands come up. Well, what does that mean? It means he can send out a flyer or an email to say, hey, I can speak to your congregation locally. That type of thing, right? And same with colleges. He says, I can come to your campus and speak to your, you know, during orientation about, hey, you think it's going to be tough? Try graduating college when you're blind. And that's what he did. So those were our two target markets. So I want you to be thinking about that as you're dreaming of the day that you're about to get on television. Have you done your homework in the back end? Okay. And that's really the pieces that I want to highlight today. The next time we get together, I'm going to talk about how your website and that element is only half the solution. So that is the end of my, what I will call educational piece for you. I'm going to quickly check the chat area. If you have any questions, I will wrap up with those. And if not, then I'm just going to tell you to check out next time on the Reach Millions TV and make sure you tune into my next episode. Alrighty, until then, see you next time.